With Drake Baldwin on the injured list with an oblique strain, Austin Riley's got to be better. Let's talk about it. Yes, welcome on into Braves Today, a production of the Belief Podcast Network and presented to you by FanDuel. I'm your host, Lindsey Crosby. You can find all of my written work, bravestoday.com. That's the Braves Today Substack, as this is both a podcast and a newsletter. Braves won last night, 8-4 over the Marlins. They've evened the series up at one game apiece. And, shout out Martín Pérez. He was a little bit shaky early, but he really kind of locked in after that first inning, made it through 5, set a career high with 10 punch-outs. So credit to that change-up, and that's just me being a change-up hater, or not really appreciating how good the change-up can be. And we saw last night how good that pitch was for him. But the bigger news out of yesterday was the roster moves in the morning. Just like we talked about yesterday. Aaron Bummer, gone. They didn't even designate him for assignment. They just outright released him. J.R. Ritchie was optioned back down to Gwinnett. And Walt Weiss said it wasn't performance-based. They wanted to add another reliever because they had been running the pen short. He was the starter that had options. And, Walt Weiss said all the right things. He's going to continue to be, of use to us, and he's a talented young player and all of that. None of that's wrong. That's all correct. But the other move at the same time was they called up Chadwick Tromp to replace Drake Baldwin, who went on the IL with an oblique injury. And that hurts. We have seen plenty of guys this season for Atlanta get hot, cool off a little bit, get hot again. Matt Olson, I think, is a great example of that, right? Drake Baldwin's been pretty consistently hitting, and even when he had a little bit of a cool spell, it still wasn't that bad. So when he goes on the IL, his .932 OPS is 12th best in all of baseball. At the same time that his .303 average is 12th best in all of baseball. And his .543 slugging percentage is tied for 13th best in all of baseball. It's one of those kind of like get you a man who can do both. He's hitting for power. He's also hitting for average. His 13 home runs, one behind Matt Olson for the team lead, and that was tied for 8th in all of baseball. He's been objectively the best hitter on Atlanta's roster, and he's going to miss some time. Now, Walt Weiss did tell us after the game, when Baldwin had gone back to Atlanta for an MRI, Walt Weiss told reporters after the game that it's a grade 1 strain. So they believe that they avoided the worst case scenario here. Because there have been oblique strains that made guys miss multiple. Sean Murphy in 2024, he had the oblique strain on a swing in the 7th inning of the season opener. And by the time he made it back in May, Ronald Acuna Jr. was already done. He was already down and gone for the season with the knee injury. And so Atlanta had the projected opening day lineup together for 7 innings all year. And the injuries just kind of kept going that season. You started a bunch of DFA'd players in your lineup in a trade acquisition, which, speaking of, Gio Urshela retired yesterday. He was one of those trade acquisitions. He was playing a lot of third base for Atlanta in place of Austin Riley. Urshela announced his retirement from baseball yesterday. Congrats on a great career, buddy. The thing that's really tough here is oblique injuries. One, they're very common in baseball, but these things are typically not a 1 week or 2 week thing in your back. Even a grade 1 injury, because of how hard Drake Baldwin swings, the position that he plays, it really kind of feels like you're looking at a month in this situation. I went back into the Baseball Prospectus Injured List Ledger, something that they make available. I think it's maybe only to paid subscribers, but you can search injuries by team. You can search injuries by type of injury. So I went in and I pulled up oblique strains for 2025 to look at all the different guys who had oblique strains. And even most of the milder strains looked like it's 20-something days before a guy makes it back. Shea Langoliers, great example here. Went on June 6th is when he went on the IL last year with an oblique strain. He missed 24 days and came back on June 30th. The hard part is trying to find applicable oblique strains on the tool, because a lot of these guys aren't catchers. Like Atlanta has guys who had oblique strains. Jake Fraley missed 18 games late in the year last year with an oblique strain. He's also an outfielder. There's different defensive requirements on a catcher than there is on an outfielder. And so trying to find the applicable ones is tough. Miguel Amaya of the Cubs, his was more severe. He missed 79 days. But again, his was a grade 2, not a grade 1. It really feels like Atlanta's most likely scenario is going to be close to a month, early June, before Drake's back. The team is not given a time frame. That is me going off of the injuries that we saw last year to players that are remotely similar from a body type to Drake Baldwin. Again, a couple guys came back sooner. The Marlins had 6 last year. 6 oblique strains last year. And, 19 days, 21 days, 24 days, 19 days, 43 days, 29 days. But the thing that I'm also noticing in here, when I look at these guys who have oblique strains, is there's a handful of them who it bothered them all year. Wyatt Langford of the Texas Rangers. April 9th, oblique strain last year. He returned April 20th. And then he went back on the IL in June with the oblique strain. Minimum stay, 10 days. And then he went on the IL again to end the year with an oblique strain. This may be a scenario where Baldwin is able to come back in 10 days. But the Braves say, hey, we want to wait a little bit longer than 10 days before we bring you back, because we want to make sure you are fully healthy and this does not recur. We want it to be a scenario like, hey, Jason Hayward with the Padres missed 28 days from May 24th to June 21st. He didn't go on the IL again that year for it. Jazz Chisholm missed 34 days for the Yankees, April 30th to June 3rd. But he didn't go back on the IL for the oblique the rest of the year. In the meantime, the Braves are going to have to make do with Sandy León and Chadwick Tromp, which, from an offensive perspective, based on recent history, makes Atlanta now kind of in the bucket of one of the worst offensive pairings in the league, just based on what these guys have done in their careers. I would probably put Atlanta right there with Cleveland, who has now Patrick Bailey and Austin Hedges as their 2 catchers, as far as a lack of offense from the catching position. I say that knowing that Sandy León and Chadwick Tromp combined for 2 hits last night. I think they scored a run collectively. It probably also buys a little bit of insurance for Kyle Farmer when he comes back from the injured list, because Kyle Farmer is out right now. When they activated Ronald, they IL'd Farmer with what they're calling a strained right forearm. He's eligible to be activated next week because that was the 16th. But Farmer has a lot of experience in his career working as a catcher. While he only has 90 innings in the major leagues behind the plate and none since 2019, when you look at his minor league time before they decided, hey, you're no longer going to be a catcher, there's a lot more experience there. In the minors, he made 319 starts behind the plate, 2,779 innings across 7 seasons. And I've noticed before he went down to injury, I noticed that between innings, when somebody would need to come out and be warming up the pitcher who was going to pitch that inning, Kyle Farmer would do it. He was back there. He wouldn't be fully strapped up in gear. They usually didn't get fully strapped up in gear, but he'd be back there warming up the catcher between innings. He'd jog out, he'd do that, and then whenever Drake Baldwin or Sandy León or Sean whoever it was, actually I guess it wasn't León, whoever it was ready to come out after getting strapped up, he'd hand it off to them and he'd go back to the dugout. So when Eli White's ready to come back, Jose Azocar probably is the casualty there. And then I would imagine if they can, they try and find a way to bring Kyle Farmer back. My question is going to be, how do you do that? Now that you have Ha-Seong Kim back, once you get Eli White back, your bench would be some combination of your backup catcher. I don't really know if we're going to call Sandy León or Tromp the starter. I guess León's technically the starter. But it'd be your backup catcher, Jorge Mateo, Mauricio Dubon, and Eli White. I don't know how you get rid of one of those guys for Kyle Farmer, but I feel like they're going to want to find a way, if they can, to get Kyle Farmer back. They may just wait and keep him on the IL until somebody else gets hurt, because it's going to happen. It always does. And then they can bring Kyle Farmer back just to be that emergency catcher. Because like last night, they pinch it for León, and then they put Tromp in there. If something happened to Tromp, if Tromp got nicked up, or, something happened to him and he had to leave the game, who's the emergency catcher? I don't think they know. They probably would have ended up trying Mauricio Dubon, I'm guessing. But we don't know who the emergency catcher would have been. So there's a possibility they try to get Kyle Farmer back. If this was a longer absence, if this was a grade 2 strain, he's going to miss a couple months, I'd imagine the Braves probably try to make a trade for a catcher. But since this is a grade 1 strain for Baldwin, can't imagine they'll be too desperate to add another catcher. They'll just ride with León and Tromp for a couple weeks and then go back to Baldwin as the primary starter, and then eventually add in Murphy whenever he's healed from the broken finger. But one of the things that would help cover the loss of Drake Baldwin would be a return to form by Austin Riley. And last night, it didn't look like we were on the verge of getting that. Let's talk about that next, right here on Braves Today. But first, this episode is brought to you by IQ Bar, our exclusive snack, hydration, and coffee sponsor. IQ Bar protein bars, IQ Mix hydration mixes, and IQ Joe mushroom-infused coffees are the delicious, low-sugar brain and body fuel you need to win your day. The Ultimate Sampler Pack's a great way to try all the IQ Bar products and flavors. You get 9 IQ bars, 8 IQ Mix sticks, and 4 IQ Joe sticks. All IQ Bar products are clean label certified and entirely free from gluten, dairy, soy, GMOs, and artificial ingredients. With over 20,000 5-star reviews and counting, more people than ever are fueling their busy lifestyles with IQ Bar's brain and body boosting bars, hydration mixes, and mushroom-infused coffees. And the Ultimate Sampler Pack includes all 3. Right now, IQ Bar is offering our podcast listeners 20% off of all IQ Bar products, including the Ultimate Sampler Pack, plus free shipping. To get your 20% off, text MLB to 64000. That's MLB to 64000. That's MLB to 64000. Messages and data rates may apply. See terms for details. Austin Riley last night really kind of showed that not only is he not back, but in some ways he's looking worse than ever. They had briefly bumped him down to like 6th in the lineup, and he's been back up batting either 4th or 5th in the last 5 days. But last night was kind of miserable. Riley goes 0 for 4. He does get on in the 9th via a hit by pitch. So there you go. He does get on base. But the plate approach was just awful for Riley. So he saw 2 pitches in that 9th inning, and he was hit by the second one. So if we take those out, 21 pitches in his 4 at-bats. He saw 8 in the strike zone, combined through the first 4 at-bats. Yet he still struck out 3 times. And the one time he didn't strike out, he hit a comebacker to starter Braxton Garrett at 41.6 miles an hour. And in the first inning, he struck out with runners on the corners and 1 out. In the third inning, that was the Braxton Garrett comeback, or a line out with runners on the corner and 1 out. In the fifth inning, he struck out with a runner on second and 2 outs. And in the seventh inning, he struck out with a runner on first and second with 2 outs. Atlanta stranded 11 runners on base in this Miami win. 7 of those were Riley by himself. And I'm at the point of I genuinely don't know what to do with Austin Riley. I don't. Because of the current roster configuration, right? Ronald's back but not playing the field yet. Eli White is out. Your primary configuration of your outfield, at least for the rest of the Miami series, is going to be Mauricio Dubon in left, Michael Harris in center, and Mike Yastrzemski in right. That's what they have been running while Ronald was out, and they'll keep having to run that this week. And Ronald may get a day in the field, but Walt Weiss kind of indicated the plan was to keep him at DH on this turf in Miami. Because Jurickson Profar is a dummy, you don't have the extra outfielder available to give Austin Riley a day off. The one time he's been off, Mauricio Dubon started for him at third base, and then they ended up putting Riley in the game late anyway because they needed Dubon somewhere else. And I say that from the perspective of Ha-Seong Kim, and we're going to get to Ha-Seong Kim, don't worry. Ha-Seong Kim has not yet shown the arm strength to play third base. I don't know if Jorge Mateo has a ton of experience at third base. I have no doubt that he could get it done if they asked him to do it. But pulling this up and looking real quick, he has 29 career innings at third base, and 27 of them were in 2021. He's covered 2 innings at third base since the start of the 2022 season. So, and they seem very reluctant to let him play the outfield at all. They put Jose Azocar in the outfield over Jorge Mateo. And so I think the only real thing you can do with Austin Riley is move him down in the lineup and just see if he can figure it out. Get Chipper to work with him some more, get Tim Hires to work with him some more, and just see if you can figure out what's going on. And silly me, I'm one of those people that briefly thought maybe he was fixing things, right? When they started that big 9-game road trip, Colorado, Seattle, and the Dodgers, he was hitting 190 entering the trip. He had a 588 OPS. He had a slugging percentage that was 314 entering that road trip. And he had a good road trip. He went 12 for 38. He hit 3 home runs. He drove in 8. He scored 7 times. He had 4 extra base hits in those 12 hits. So again, 3 homers and a double. But even then, he only walked twice. He struck out 14 times. And so I thought, and that wraps through the first game back at home against the Cubs. I'm like, okay, maybe Austin Riley's figuring it out. Maybe whatever funk he was in is behind him. Since then, he's 4 for 28. Now, of those hits, 2 of them are for extra bases, a double and a home run. But he's 4 for 28 in the 7 games since then. And I'm at the point now, again, what do you do with Austin Riley? Both short-term and long-term. Short-term, I guess the approach here is to give him some time off. When you look at the StatCast card, his base running has been fantastic. He is, I would argue, one of the better base runners on the team right now, both from a run value perspective and just what we've seen on the field. He's stolen 3 bags. He seems to have taken to the Antoine Richardson approach better than anybody else has so far. He's also struggling to get on base, and so it's not like he can effectively utilize a lot of it. His whiff rate is over 30%. His chase rate's over 33%. He's still swinging hard. When he makes contact, he's ripping a bunch of hard hit balls. His hard hit rate is 47%. It's 79th percentile. His barrel rate's right up there as well. I mean, when he gets a ball, he's ripping the heck out of it. The problem is he's swinging and missing way too much. And he's never been great at swing and miss. He's always kind of had those elevated whiff rates. And I say always. It's the last couple of years. Like even in 2022, 2023, he was still below average when it came to whiffs. But he was also drawing his share of walks. He was also, he was finding ways to get on base. He was getting the production. This year, he has not. And the hard part, too, is defensively, he's also not been that great. His range grades out very poorly. And so Atlanta's in a situation where you have a newly bearded and long-haired Austin Riley at third base, signed to the biggest deal in team history. And you're now in your third season of him not performing as well as we know he's capable of. And I don't have a fix. There's not an easy, fix this, change this, and you're good. There's not a thing there. I don't have a simple cure for this. And I think that's what's most frustrating is we get these flashes where it looks like he's coming back. The Austin Riley is coming back, the guy that we knew. And then it goes away again. I hate to just kind of be the broken record on this, but I don't know what you do. He's hitting fastballs well. He has a 280 average against fastballs, which is the exact same as he was last year. He had a 281 last year. He's slugging them this year even better than he was slugging them last year. Of his 7 home runs, all of them are on heaters. He's hitting 122 against breaking balls. He's hitting 120 against off speeds. He has a 35% whiff rate against breaking balls. He has a 40% whiff rate against off speed pitches. Some of this is a little bit of bad luck, right? The expected batting average on breaking balls is 189. That's still not good. That's better. That's still not good. Even last year, he was better in both the actual and the expecteds against breaking balls. Dead air is a terrible thing to have on a podcast, but I'm sitting here with my mouth open just trying to figure out what to do, and I don't know. This, to me, is the biggest single question for the Atlanta Braves long term. Is Austin Riley at third base? The at-bats were brutal last night. Do you move him down in the order temporarily? Do you bat him 6th, 7th? Do you make your final 3 be him, be León or Tromp, and then be Ha-Seong Kim? I don't know. You got to figure it out, or you've got to find a way to get off under that contract in the offseason. I don't want to get rid of Austin Riley. I do think you can fix Austin Riley. Figure out what's wrong with Austin Riley and fix him. But you've got to do it. Because you can't have a dude who can't hit anything but a fastball and is declining on the defensive metrics be your starting third baseman and batting in your top 4 or 5 if you expect to be a World Series contender. That's just not how it works. You got to figure it out. Let's talk about Ha-Seong Kim. Little bit of a shaky night last night. Shaky start to the season. What's real, what's not? We'll do that next right here on Braves Today. Ha-Seong Kim has not looked good since he returned this year. He's 2 for 23. I don't necessarily think a lot of people expected him to be a very good hitter right away. And I do think people have had questions about what is his overall offensive ceiling for a while now. In 24, before the shoulder injury, he wasn't great offensively. he was hitting 233 with a 700 OPS before the shoulder injury. Now, the expected was a little better, 245, but he wasn't slugging. He wasn't projected on all the inputs to look like he'd be slugging or hitting the ball hard or getting barrels or anything like that. But he wasn't chasing. He wasn't whiffing. He wasn't striking out. And he was drawing a lot of walks. He finished 24 with a walk rate of 12.3% and a strikeout rate of 16.4%. He was 97th percentile in chase, 92nd percentile in whiff. So far this year, and again, very small sample size, 23 at-bats, 26 plate appearances. He's not really chasing, 19% chase rate. He's not really whiffing, 17.5% whiff rate. But he's not producing offensively. And his he has 2 hits. It's been 2 singles. His slugging is 087. His OPS is 279. But I do think it's fair to point out that he is fresh off of, in essence, getting 2 weeks of games in the minor leagues, and he didn't have a spring training. And I will say, his hard hit rate of 35% isn't great, but it's right there by Mike Yastrzemski and Ronald Acuna Jr. It's not like it's been terrible. It's better than Mauricio Dubon's hard hit rate. It's better than Ozzie Albies' hard hit rate. Some of that's not bad. But the thing that's bothering me, the thing that's really frustrating me about Ha-Seong Kim has been the glove. Because I know that he won the Gold Glove as a utility player, not as a shortstop. He won it in 23, where he had 857 innings at second base. He also played third, he also played short, and that's why he won the utility version of the glove versus the second base version of the glove. But I don't think anybody saw him taking this long to get back to major league timing defensively. He already has 2 errors in his 17 games. He's been involved in 30 defensive plays. He has 10 putouts. He has 18 assists. And he has 2 errors. So if you just take the putouts and the errors together, he's had 20 chances. But let's not do that. 30 defensive chances, 2 errors. You can legitimately make the argument, and I don't know how valid it is, you can make the argument that Ha-Seong Kim is the 3rd best shortstop on this roster right now from a defensive perspective, behind Mauricio Dubon and behind Jorge Mateo. Now, and here's the hard part. It's hard to say, hey, don't play him at shortstop because of that. Because we know the ceiling of Ha-Seong Kim is better than that. I think the ceiling of Ha-Seong Kim we saw is a guy who can give you double-digit steals, who can hit for a high average, draw plenty of walks, get on base, is a good base runner. We've seen the ceiling of Ha-Seong Kim. He has multiple seasons with an OPS in the 700s. His best year, grain of salt, it's 2023. We all know what the baseball did that year. He had 17 home runs. His other 2 top years, he's had 11 in both years. But double-digit steals. He stole 38 bags in 23. He stole 22 bags in 24. He's not been on enough for Atlanta to steal bags. He's been on base 5 times. The ceiling for Ha-Seong Kim feels like it's better than the ceiling for Mateo, than the ceiling for Dubon. And I like the idea. We talked about it in the second segment. I like the idea of having Kim there every day so you can deploy Dubon to give Riley a day off, to give Ozzie a day off. I think Ozzie could probably use a day off at this point. But you can't do that. And the biggest thing that the Braves have to, not biggest thing, Riley's the biggest thing, but something that the Braves need to do is get Ha-Seong Kim going. And I think offensive, And offensively is really where you have to get him going. I think defensively it's going to come. In retrospect, should they probably have let him stay on rehab another week? Probably. Use the full 20 days of rehab. Get him some more time before he comes back up. I'm just surprised, that's all. I didn't think the glove would be the thing that was lagging behind. I assumed that offensively, it would take him a little while to get going. He didn't have a spring training. I assumed that you probably were going to look at a little bit of like base running. He'd have to get used to the timing, stealing, all of that stuff, reading major league pitchers. That's kind of where I was expecting the slow ramp up. It wasn't defense. Because you could absolutely make the argument right now that Mateo should be at short every day. He's been hot when he's been in the lineup. He has the best speed on the team, especially with Eli White being out. He has the best speed in the league. Jorge Mateo is a 100th percentile runner this year. You know, also, small sample, Jorge Mateo has a 42% hard hit rate. It is 6th on the team. Technically 5th. Chadwick Tromp has one at bat, or one batted ball. So it's technically 5th on the team at 42%. It's Michael Harris, Drake Baldwin, Matt Olson, Austin Riley, Jorge Mateo. It's better than Dom Smith. It's better than Ronald. It's better than Mike. It's better than Ozzy. It's better than Dubon. It's better long-term if you can get Kim figured out. Short-term, can you afford to wait while Riley's also slumping, while you're without Baldwin? And because Ronald's a DH, you don't have Dom Smith in the lineup on a regular basis. Can you afford to wait? I don't know. I'm sorry that this episode just seems so down. Every now and then you got things you got to talk about. Things that aren't great you got to talk about. And I think these are some things that aren't necessarily great. I will end on a high note, though. Last night, Didier Fuentes threw his first ever back-to-back appearance out of the bullpen. And I said this either on the post... No, we didn't do a postcast on Monday. I think I said this on yesterday's show. When you made the roster moves, you got rid of Aaron Bummer, when you sent J.R. Ritchie down, and you brought some relievers up, they needed to go ahead and convert either Lopez or Fuentes into more of a traditional reliever that they were comfortable using in leverage situations. Fuentes ended up being the guy. Pitched his first back-to-back. He very much just used the reliever pitch mix. Fastball, slider. He didn't throw any splitters. Just fastball, slider. 70% heater. But with the questions you have about Tyler Kinley and the fact that Dylan Dodd has reverse splits, you need somebody who just has really good stuff that can get both righties and lefties out. I think Didier Fuentes, if he takes to a move to more of a traditional reliever for this season and then works in the offseason to get ready to be a starter again, I think this can be a really helpful move to bolster your bullpen for the season. It's also worth pointing out that Didier Fuentes was always going to have some workload concerns. I don't remember if I mentioned this or not, but when you look at what he did last year, between the majors and the minors, he threw 57 innings in the minors. He threw 13 in the majors, so 70 innings. If they were to keep him as a starter, it wasn't going to work out long term. So I'm glad they did this. That'll do it for Braves Today. Please like the video. Please subscribe. We'll see you next time on Braves Today.